So I've been watching some of those Louder with Crowder Change My Mind things on YouTube, done by Steven Crowder, and it's like, I never really knew much about Steven Crowder until, I just clicked on a few of those things. I've always seen him, in the suggested videos, and they do a lot of ads promoting his show on YouTube, but it's like, I just never really watched his show regularly, so it was just something kind of new. And they did one about Kwanzaa, and I guess we can just sort of make a response to that. Is Kwanzaa as legitimate a holiday as Christmas? But the original title of the video was Kwanzaa Isn't Real, Change My Mind, or something like that. And I thought it was interesting to know that Steven Crowder was the voice of the brain on Arthur. And it's like, the brain on Arthur was the first one to tell me that Kwanzaa was a holiday invented by Dr. Malana Karenga, and just like the whole point that holidays can change and you can invent new holidays and you can create new holidays. And Crowder was kind of reminiscing about that episode, but he left out the whole point that the brain thought Kwanzaa was a legitimate holiday. I mean, is Kwanzaa as legitimate as Christmas? I mean, I definitely would say that it's a legitimate holiday. And because they had one line in there where Crowder said something like, Kwanzaa is not about Africans, it's about African Americans. And that's not exactly true. It's about sort of the intersectional thing between both of them, to be honest. It's like, Kwanzaa, as I understand it, is about the reculturalization of African traditions to people who whose ancestors came from Africa all over the world, about in America, Europe, Asia, Australia. It's about the reculturalization of African tradition, because so many things that are founded in America and Europe are all based on, European traditions. And so Malana Karenga came up with Kwanzaa as a way to kind of put the traditional African content back into Black America, for lack of a better term. And it's like, if someone wants to celebrate Kwanzaa, they should have, every right to. But is Kwanzaa as legitimate of a holiday as Christmas? I think it's absolutely irrelevant to bring up something like only 1% of African Americans celebrate Kwanzaa, because the whole point is they have every right to, whether you want to celebrate it or not. It's like, you have every right to, and just, it is a holiday that is there. And it's like, Kwanzaa Bot on Futurama even mocked the whole thing about how he gives out Kwanzaa books for 600 years and no one has any idea what it is. And it's like, maybe this is one thing that public schools might actually have right, when they're just like, they talk about Kwanzaa like, it is a holiday, and they sort of kind of put it up there with, the holidays, Hanukkah, Christmas, and Kwanzaa. But Crowder points out that they never really tell you all the background information behind it. Well, maybe that's actually a good thing, because if you celebrate the holiday, you're already going to know what it's about, and, there's no reason to sort of turn this into sort of, an indoctrination lesson. And you could say the same thing about, teaching these sort of, stories of Christmas or the stories of Hanukkah. It's like, you're telling people that the holiday is there, and you're just kind of paying homage to it. And especially a holiday like Kwanzaa, that is something that is newer. It's absolutely irrelevant that Christmas has been celebrated for at least 1,600 years, and it's like, it doesn't really matter how long that it has been celebrated. It's just a matter about, about paying respect to people of different origins and different backgrounds. But yeah, just to reiterate, to say that Kwanzaa is not about Africans is false. It's about, it's all about Africans, actually. It's about, bringing the African tradition back into Black people all around the world. But is it as legitimate as Christmas? Well, I think the only thing that is different between Kwanzaa and Christmas are the numbers, and that's not the important thing. if 92% of the population in America celebrated Kwanzaa, we wouldn't have the conversation and the roles would be reversed. And if that's the case, then yes, Kwanzaa is as legitimate as Christmas. It's just like, if you just want to go by percentages, then you just have sort of the political majority trying to control the whole thing. And let's not pretend that it wasn't about that. But it's like, once again, to reiterate as well, it was kind of a good thing that the schools tell you that Kwanzaa is a holiday, but they don't get into all of the details about it, because it's like, let's not kid ourselves. It was sort of, a Black Pride holiday, and it's like, it's almost impractical to try and be teaching something like that in the school. You can say, yes, it's a holiday. It's there. Like how they sometimes do with something like Ramadan. They say, yes, this is a holiday celebrated by Muslims all over the world, but they don't really give you all of the kind of, step-by-step processes associated with celebrating Ramadan. And a very similar thing can be applied to Christianity and Judaism. I don't think there's anything wrong about, someone in a public school even just saying that Christmas is a holiday that exists, or Hanukkah is a holiday, or Kwanzaa. So it's like, that might be one of the things that they actually do kind of well. It's like they say that, these are holidays that people do celebrate, but they don't have to give you the entire presentation. And if you're already celebrating it yourself, you should know what it's about. But on the notion of separation of church and state, this is one thing that I don't really know how much this applies to Kwanzaa, because Kwanzaa is, we've talked mostly, Kwanzaa is a cultural holiday as opposed to a religious one. But it's like, that's just, doesn't have much separation of state and house of worship going on there. And it's also like, we don't really have a lot of separation of church and state in America when it comes to celebrating holidays. Halloween is a religious holiday, is it not? All Hallows Eve. It's all about spirits, and the spirits are out that night and stuff like that. And it has, older traditions in paganism about being thankful for the harvest. But that's totally acceptable to celebrate. Moreover, what about Valentine's Day? That's all about Saint Valentine. It's like, once again, these are two sort of holidays, Halloween and Valentine's Day, that they had some sort of religious and spiritual origin, but they've become so popularized and commercialized that they are no longer connected with that exact, spiritual origin. So now they're just some, it's just a holiday that we celebrate. Could we not treat Kwanzaa the same way and put Kwanzaa into that category? Once again, if it's totally about a numbers game, well then, yes, Kwanzaa is just as legitimate as Christmas. Because, if the only reason why you think that Kwanzaa is not a legitimate holiday is because it was started in the 1960s or whenever it was, and it's like, it has a small number of people that follow it, well, that's not acceptable. Then you're just sort of saying, well, you need the numbers to be legitimate, and you don't need the numbers to have legitimate recognition as a holiday. There's a good documentary about Kwanzaa called The Black Candle. And, it's like, it's long, it's dense, but, it has some uplifting moments. One year I thought about trying to celebrate Kwanzaa myself, just to sort of get in touch with what everybody was talking about. Because, I had, been looking at a lot of things about Kwanzaa over the years. It's like, you see the displays and you see their candelabra, and not to mention, as Crowder mentions, they talk about it in school, but they don't tell you what it is. So I thought about, why don't I celebrate Kwanzaa one year, just to sort of have the experience. And I watched that documentary I mentioned, The Black Candle, and it's just like, then I realized this really isn't inviting to a white person like me, because it really is, a holiday for black people. And I say that with the utmost respect. It's just like, once again, it's about, the reculturalization of African traditionalism that has been emptied out of the lives of many black people through displacement associated with the slave trade and with post-colonialism. But yeah, just because it doesn't have the numbers to support it, then it is something that's totally irrelevant in terms of a holiday's legitimacy. Now, on the question of the character of Dr. Maulana Karenga, about whether he did some illegal things in his life, once again, that is purely irrelevant in regards to the holiday. It's just like, just because he did some bad things in life, it doesn't mean that a holiday isn't legitimate. A holiday that is celebrated by thousands of people, and they have their own things in Kwanzaa. All the different candles have meaning and stuff like that, and it ties back to Swahili. And it's like, those are the things that you cannot change. Those are the things that are irrespective of one person's character. I mean, it's like, you could go through the Bible and find some things about Jesus that you disagree with, and then you could just say that Christmas is not a legitimate holiday. But you don't have to, because that's not a good way to live. Because it's just like, that doesn't get to the heart of the issue. That doesn't get to the whole fact that this is just something that people celebrate. That's what a holiday is, right? So it's like, once again, it's difficult to say things like this, because I know it's very unpopular. It's a very unpopular opinion to put out everything that I have just laid out, because most people are just looking for something to make them angry, and I'm definitely going to be saying more things that are going to be associated with, hey, let's just respect all human beings, regardless of, as long as they are not destructive, and let's just, share love with the world. That's something that doesn't really get reiterated enough. Well, anyway, that's all we have to really say about Kwanzaa. I'd say that, yes, Kwanzaa is just as legitimate as Christmas, and Kwanzaa is just a celebration. People celebrate it. Maybe not that many people, but, I mean, not that many people celebrate the day of St. Helen, and is that a legitimate holiday? You could say yes as well. Alright, well, until next time.